Welcome to Equitable Minds, a monthly podcast focusing on pertinent issues in the U.S. educational system and our society today. We bring to attention concerns in areas such as educational leadership, school and community, innovation in education, research to practice, and social and cultural challenges in schools. We invite experts, educators, and community members to discuss challenges and present solutions. I'm your host, Dr. Floyd Beacham, been a professor of urban school leadership at Lehigh University. Welcome to another episode of Equitable Minds. I'm your host, Dr. Floyd Beacham, and I'm here with my co-host and graduate assistant, Yulitza Corsino Davis. Hey, Yulitza, how's it going?
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Today, we will discuss the transition from high school to college for students with disabilities, and we're joined by our special guest, Michelle Mitchell. Michelle is a professor and disability learning specialist at Lehigh Carbon Community College. Michelle is also the program director for the SEED program, a role in which she brings a wealth of knowledge and insight. With a master's degree in counselor education from Penn State University and certification as a rehabilitation counselor, Michelle has published and presented on various disability-related topics. Her expertise and experience make her a valuable contributor to our discussion. So we want to say, welcome, Michelle.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and welcome, or hello, everybody, I should say. It's good to be here.
All right. So, Michelle, first thing we want to ask you, and it may seem like these are like several, they're all related questions. So it may be one big answer. So first, we would like to talk to you about the SEED program itself. Can you tell us what SEED, what it stands for, how it began, and what it does?
Sure, absolutely. So SEED, actually, the name came from a planning group that just kind of started thinking about, hey, what is it that we believe this program will do, or what we want it to do for students coming into higher education? And so it stands for success, engagement, education, and determination. And so those were really the four pillars or four foundational elements that we wanted to make sure were included as part of this support program. It started as a grant that we received from the Pennsylvania Developmental Disability Council in 2014. And it was in partnership with the Lehigh Valley Center for Independent Living. And what we did is we said, hey, what is it that we can do to help make sure folks are able to access a higher education, and specifically the community college? And what we decided is that we saw students really needed additional support services to access the college. Things like coaching, mentoring, faculty resource support, all things to help navigate the complexities of higher education and relationships. Because if you know, when we get into higher education, a lot of times, those things aren't necessarily taught in the K through 12 system.
Yeah, it's true. I remember working with many students whose parents were in other, before I was with you at LTRC, and I remember working at another university, and parents coming to me because, as a learning specialist, parents would come to me and say, my student really, my child, my son, my daughter, my child needs support. Is there any other support systems in place? So when I found out about the SEED program and the work that you were doing, I was really excited because I feel like it really fills in a hole that is not, I guess, evident necessarily. That's not an automatic in everywhere you go. So I feel like the work that you're doing is really a model for other schools.
Well, thank you. I don't necessarily want to jump ahead in the conversation, but
Yeah, sorry.
it does. We're definitely going to be talking about some of those things and how we discovered those holes. So, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
And in the interest of full transparency, I guess we should mention that, the two of you have a previous working relationship when you listen with your time. I don't know if you want to mention that.
Yeah, so I before I became your graduate student, I worked at LTRC as a learning specialist for, oh gosh, I don't know how many years, a few years there. Yeah, or more than a few, I don't know. But yeah, so Michelle and I got to work together really closely with students. And so when it comes to supporting students with disabilities through the transition from high school to college. In K-12, students have a lot more supports because IDEA regulation has a higher level of uh, you know, um,
Mandated
accountability.
services. Yep.
Yeah.
Mandated services and support.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
And when you get into the higher education, it's only ADA, and that's not as high level. So for a lot of students with disabilities, that can be really jarring, really difficult, because they go from really being supported in the K-12 system to then, the higher ed system where the support is not as easily accessible, or even may sometimes doesn't exist depending on where you are.
Yeah, I mean, you're really talking about high school or K through 12 being more of a requirement, a mandate,
Mm,
and you're talking about higher ed being access.
mm.
So it's eligibility in higher education, and it's a mandate more in the K through 12 system.
Okay. And Alyssa, there's a question. Here's something for you.
Sure.
Do you want the next question and just alternate?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So why was the program created? What did you see happening with students with disabilities that motivated you to create the program?
So, kind of like we were talking about just a couple of minutes ago, Yulitza, we all seen the proverbial falling off the cliff
Hmm.
of individuals with disabilities in higher education. And, it's because individuals don't necessarily get the time and the place to practice things like decision making, self determination, problem solving, fortitude, grit, all of these things that really have to come behind a person if they're going to forge their way through the path of higher education. I mean, I'm sure that the two of you can very much remember,
Hmm.
all the things that you guys had to do to get from point A in your college to point B and maybe C, D, and E and F.
Hmm.
So it's not necessarily one of these straightforward paths that occur for everybody, and certainly not for students with disabilities.
Hmm.
So what we found is that, we needed to provide something that opened access for all individuals, specifically those with more significant disabilities, where a lot of these things didn't get taught, didn't get learned, and didn't get practiced. The decision making, the self determination, the problem solving, all of those things that I just said. And of course, the other thing that we're seeing, especially after COVID, is underprepared or unprepared. That's what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Unprepared or underprepared from high school to college.
Hmm.
You know, um, Folks were so used to doing kind of what we're doing right now. We're talking on through a screen,
Hmm.
some of it's recorded or not recorded, and it wasn't the same as having to show up at day after day, getting dressed
Hmm.
and brushing your teeth, and the things that you do to be human, to interact with people face to face compared to through a screen. And so, there's a lot of that is occurring as well. And what we had found is that students with disabilities, this is multiplied extensively. And so to have some sort of system in place, some sort of structure in place for folks to have coaches, mentors, whatever, come alongside to be able to navigate that was really critical. And that's what it is that we did. We tried to make sure that that gap that they were maybe not getting in K through 12 now has that additional support come alongside system to be able to navigate that journey and learn those particular skill sets. So we're not in the business of keeping people forever. It is really our goal, desire, job to help make sure that they have these skill sets to use either while they continue on at LTRI-C, if they gain them that quickly, or to use them once they leave LTRI-C. And we have several students who have gone on to four-year institutions and competitive integrated employment without really needing much support at all.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's incredible. Now we noticed on the Seed website that the program has three tracks. Can you explain how the tracks work and what kinds of students would be good candidates for each?
Sure. And I'm going to use another one of those sayings out there. So I'm going to say it differently, though. One size does not fit all.
Mhm.
And that's what we were very much experiencing and noticing as we were deciding how to put this together. And so, like I said, 2014 was our planning year, 2015 was our launch year, and we've been in business since 2015. And we noticed as we were going that we needed to make sure that there was enough individuality within the various support structures to allow for individuals to get that support they needed without it being too much and without it being too little. So the three tracks that we have, the first one and the lowest level of support structure is called Achieve. And basically, this is for a student who has attained the skills in decision making, problem solving, and fortitude, but may need some support here or there to practice them. So, hey, I know when I have a problem. I understand that I need to go to the tutor when I don't know what to do with math, or I need to go to the business office to pay my bill, or I need to go to my advisor to schedule my classes. These are things I've gained skills at. I know who those people are. I'm embedded in my community, and I know how to navigate that. But I may run into something here or there that kind of throws me for a loop, and I'm not exactly sure who to go, what to do, how to problem solve. And so there is somebody there who can come alongside me and be able to take action. So that is our Achieve level. Our academic level is for individuals who are pursuing credit level programming. And that means like an associate's degree, certificate, but the credit level programming that we have here at LTRI-C, but may need some weekly follow along, direct, intrusive supports to maintain their academic and independent living goals. So this is an individual that is ready for the steps that are needed to move through credit level programming and are up for the challenge of some hard work and going through the testing and the studying and the completing of homework and assignments, but probably need somebody to come alongside to help make sure that those things are happening. To say, hey, did you see that maybe you got like 4 grades in a row here that are not so good, and your grade just went down to a 69? Is there something you think we should do about that? Um, somebody who's helping to kind of pay attention and take notice to some of these details that are often missed or lost because they're so busy with trying to navigate and do the other things that are required of them as part of their academic journey. So that's academic. And typically students receive at least 2 times a week intervention, if not more, but at least 2 times a week direct intrusive. We call it intrusive, but I don't mean that in a negative way. But I do mean that in an intrusive way, to be able to provide that support. Our last level of support is called our XISC, which stands for our Cross-Institutional Studies Certificate career track. This is for individuals who may be pursuing a credit level or certificate of completion through auditing courses and need support at least 3 times a week or more of that direct intrusive coaching, mentoring, and the things that we provide in order to reach their academic and independent living goals. And there's typically an employment component associated with this level of support. So on-campus employment, job shadowing, volunteering somewhere in the community, whatever the case might be, to get that hands-on practical side of things. Students in the academic track can get that as well, but we found typically they're working their own jobs off campus as well as pursuing their academic goals. And so they typically don't have a whole lot of extra time for on-campus employment too. But the students that are in the career track, that is one of the major components of that track. And, like I said, we definitely make sure, and typically I should say, students receive that at least 4 times a week of direct intrusive intervention support to be able to navigate what it is they need to navigate in their journey.
So what kind
Wow.
of how does that what does that look like, the intrusive support? I
Mm,
know it might be different for the different tracks. So
So it looks like at least a hour to 2 hour coaching meeting every week, or 3 times a week, depending upon the track. It looks like resource staff looking at their learning management system. We use Canvas here and saying, let's look at this class, let's look at this class, and working on some of those assignments together. It looks like their peers, working in work groups together on specific classes that they might be taking that are the same. So they might be doing music together. We have American pop, no, what is it called? Popular music, I think we call it. And so there might be 3 or 4 students in that class, and they're all working together on the assignments and achieving the goals together. Um, so it really does look like uh, not just sitting there and waiting for the student to come to us, but we're going to the student and saying, hey, let's take a look. All the students put together, except for the Achieve track, all the students are required to put together an academic tracker that's changed every
mm.
week to make sure we list out all of the things that have to be done in order to find success in their classes.
Okay, Michelle, as you were talking, just a quick follow up. Um, did you speak to so who exactly are they meeting with in terms of like your staff and what are their qualifications? The ones who are actually, working with the students directly.
So in the beginning of our conversation, I said this was in partnership with the Lehigh Valley Center for Independent Living.
Hmm.
So our coaches come from the Lehigh Valley Center for Independent Living,
Uh,
LVCIL for
hmm.
short.
Okay. Yep.
So they're typically individuals with bachelor's or master's degree who are trained in vocational job coaching, as well as have learned the academic side of things, academic coaching, to be able to help, facilitate and orchestrate all of the things that I've been talking about. Then we have our adjunct and part-time professors who come in and provide the faculty resource staff.
Mm,
So they're the ones that are, coming alongside to help with like the assignments, or let's look at your learning management system and figure out what the directions mean on this particular assignment, or helping them to kind of create their to-do lists and those types of things. The wonderful thing I have to say, Dr. Beecham, about this is that those faculty who have come into that realm have become better teachers,
mm,
have been able
mm.
to reach more of their students because of what they have been learning by working individually in providing seed support. It's been
Wow.
pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
So, and then
uh,
my qualifications as the coordinator of the program.
yeah. How many students who are getting disability related supports in high school and want that extra support in college? So students who are transitioning. How do you market the program so parents and students know about it in the area? Is it more local, national?
So it's all over the place. So basically, we do emails out multiple times per out the year for different things like information nights, our open houses that LTRIC offers. So I email out to the transition coordinators, the superintendents, and the teachers involved with individuals with disabilities to say, hey, here's your opportunities. Make sure your
Mm,
students come or your parents come if they're interested. We also have what's called the Next Steps Transition Fair. We host every spring. And basically, that's inviting all the school districts that are in our counties to come, and individuals with disabilities, students with disabilities, to come and participate in this transition fair. And one of which is hearing about the SEED program. The next thing is I do regional, state, and national conferences, like you put in your intro. So I am able
mhm,
to market it that way. We've had a lot of attention in trying to describe the model so folks are able to replicate the model.
mm.
And actually, I'm getting some funding to be able to actually now be what do they call that? Uh, Lost it in my brain. The can't think of the word for it, but basically the expert that goes out to help other community colleges in Pennsylvania start their own program. So, collaborating with Millersville University on that. So I do that. I'm part of the Pennsylvania Inclusive Higher Education Consortium,
Mhm.
college websites, local publications. So we try to make sure we get it out in all kinds of ways. And word of mouth is actually the best way.
Yeah.
You can't beat that when somebody says, "Hey, I really know about this program that I think can help your son or daughter,
Mhm.
and let me tell you about it."
Do you have students? Have you gotten feedback from students on how the program has made a difference for them?
Yeah, a lot of them provide us with that kind of feedback. A lot of them want to be a part of these regional, state, and national talks. And so we've been able to take some students to State College, to Westchester University. They participate in our Next Steps Transition Fair on panels and being able to talk about those types of things. We have team meetings. We call them team meetings at the end of each semester, and the student gets to choose who their support team is and who they want there. But oftentimes we hear in those the feedback how much they see their son or daughter or the student say, "I used to be like this and now I
Mhm.
look like this," and just a complete 180 change. We just had one of those today, as a matter of fact, where we had a student, or have a student currently, who would cry, hide in their shirt,
Mm.
hide in their mom's chest. Anytime you would ask them a question about anything, what do you like? I don't know. And he'd hide in his mom. And the student today ran their own meeting,
Oh, wow.
talking
Wow.
talking about what they liked and didn't like and what they were wanting to do. Sat across from mom, not next to mom, and just total. I mean, the mom couldn't say enough. That
Amazing.
was after a year.
Yeah, that's
That's
pretty. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And
that is
and
amazing.
and speaking of students, maybe you can talk to a little bit about students with disabilities in general. What do you see as the most pressing issue facing them in today's K-12 and higher ed landscapes?
Well, honestly, I did give this question some thought because I want to be fair to everybody, but I do think that there is this general lack of experience that does permeate individuals with disabilities. Period. I myself am an individual with a disability, and I can speak personally to this as much as I can tell you from what I see and observe as I work with students with disabilities. Just one of the things that we learn as we grow, neurotypical or typical individuals, is how to interact with peers that persons with disabilities don't always get or typically don't get, how to fail,
Mm.
which individuals with disabilities don't typically get, how to have different types of jobs that you either keep or you don't keep because you made stupid mistakes, which persons with disabilities don't typically get. And I think all of these things kind of culminate in this lack of understanding of themselves and who they are and what they want to be, which then makes higher education that much more challenging because, next thing you know, we're asking them, what do they want to learn and do for the rest of their lives? And they're like, I don't even know who I am today, much less
Mhm.
what I want to do tomorrow. Um, so I think a lot of that, definitely impacts and certainly would be a benefit to individuals if we could change that, providing more of those experiences and providing more of those opportunities to fail, learn from that failure, and then do better. Um, I do think that there is also limited or lack of opportunity to be self determined. Again, we get that once we hit college, but once we hit college, it's so much harder to figure out how to put those into place without having these major consequences that then push us out of college, right? I'm still
Right.
learning. And what do you mean I'm suspended because I didn't academically thrive or survive or whatever the case might be? I'm just figuring out how to, tie my shoe or turn on my computer or whatever the case might be. So I think a lot of those things definitely get in the way for individuals with disabilities. And then, I think one of the big things that I would be remiss in not saying is that there's limited resources for K through 12 individuals to do a lot of these things because a lot of these things take an enormous amount of time, right? So it's not
Mhm.
just, okay, let's just fix it by letting everybody have experiences and, letting them fail and figure out from that failing, what they need to do different and all of that. Because, all of our individuals in K through 12 are currently feeling overworked and underpaid and burnt out and the effects of COVID afterward and all the other stuff that's happening for them, that it just makes it really hard to think about any of these other things I've just mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful response because it just makes me think about, we just have a lot of research and a lot of, just practical sort of experiences around students with disabilities, especially in the K-12 system, who, essentially, it's almost like you're going up against the system in a system that was really primarily founded upon general ed students. Right. I mean, everything is normed on, for the biggest, greatest population of kids. And then, for special education, which is supposed to be special, it's supposed to be something special about it, ends up being, in too many cases, separate education, which is almost segregated education. And, the whole purpose of inclusion is to include everybody and bring everybody together. And what it seems like what we're trying to do is take a separated, segregated model, which where mostly exists now, and now we're trying to bring everybody together. So it's almost like you're sort of picking up the pieces and trying to assemble this. When if in a perfect world we would have built it, a model where we all did this together.
Exactly. And I think that because we did it the way we're doing it now, we have a lot of opposition from parents who are used
Mm,
to the separation
right.
and feel comfortable with the separation and say, well, wait a minute, my son or daughter is going to get bullied and blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, 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 because, they're not in the system right now. And I can't even imagine any other way besides separated,
Mm.
that it makes it that much harder to even do integrated at all. But yeah, I mean, if integrated could have been the way in the beginning, how much richer those individuals in K through 12, those students in K through 12 without disabilities would have been. How
Right.
much richer our society and communities would be,
Yep.
because we would learn how to,
Yep.
and not just how to work together with everybody, but the benefits, the talents,
Hmm.
the individuality of each individual coming together. And you know Yalitza might have a good idea, I might have a good idea, my good idea gives Yalitza another good idea, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And I see that happen all the time in our inclusive classrooms here at LTRI-C.
Yeah.
Students without disabilities coming along to students with disabilities and having this synergistic kumbaya kind of moment, where everybody is learning, engaged, and loving it.
Yeah. So important
Yep.
and makes such a difference for all the students. Such a
Yes.
difference.
Yep.
And for our society.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what policy changes or legislative measures are needed to strengthen the rights and protections of students with disabilities in K 12 and higher ed?
Yeah, this was a little more challenging of a
Mm.
question. I mean, I have some ideas, but certainly not a lot of ideas. But one of the things I would love to see is a change in the policy and legislation to allow OVR, Office of
Mm.
Vocational Rehabilitation, to provide early intervention. And I don't
Mm,
just mean
that's a great
this.
idea.
I don't mean this pre-ETS stuff. So I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's the pre-employment transition service,
Hmm.
I think is what it stands for.
Hmm.
Um, and basically, they can come in, I think grades 9, 10, and 11, 12, can get
Hmm.
some minor group related
Yep.
transition kinds of activities to be able to provide more of the not lack of experience, but more of that experience that I was talking about in the employment world. Um, so there's a slight movement towards it, uh, but it's limited in its scope and in its nature.
Hmm.
I, could see if policy could be different, if legislation could be different, and OVR could provide early intervention services in a more broad sense. It's going into the elementary and helping students start dreaming then about who they could be and what they might want to be when they grow up. To be able to get students into take your person to work day and not just in grocery stores and
Hmm.
uh, cleaning places and hotels and whatever some of these
Yep.
typical places that we see, but into the president, into the Capitol, and into CEO offices, and into web design places and whatever. The world is the oyster kind of an idea. Maybe even having a pre discussion about what individuals, I want to be a cop when I grow up. I want to be a ballerina. The little kid kinds of questions or responses. Well, then maybe you'd go to take them to see what a cop is like and what a ballerina does, or whatever their particular interest might be, even at a childish small age. Um, I think the more we can do that, the more we infuse worth. We give them that worth. We show them that worth. We allow them to see that what they have to offer is valued and needed. And I think that we can see a whole lot more progression toward individuals that are motivated and wanting to do great things for this society and for the community. So early intervention by OVR. And then I would say the other thing is, I don't think parents or students are educated enough in what it is they currently do have access to. So I think accessing and exercising what it is that they currently can get would be another way to help make sure that these individuals in K through 12 and higher ed are, more get more provisions and have more what it is that they need.
Yeah, you made some. I think you made some great points because, OVR, even at the moment, probably, they kind of do what they can. And some of the programs, like, they have a social skills program. They have, summer, like you said, the summer program where, students start to get, more acclimated with regard to employment. Um, but, that's a novel idea to say, if you could reach out even earlier. And the other thing I thought you said was really powerful is so many of our kids get slotted for custodial work, grocery stores. It's sort of the same old typical kinds of roles. And, I think what you said is right. We just need a more expansive, visionary kind of approach framework when we start to think about where our kids can fit in into a lot of different arenas based on their interests. And and it really and I think some of this is really trying to get people who are not used to this population to open their minds enough to say, let's open the doors, because those are still some doors that are closed. And if we can get through to the right people, we can sort of pry those doors open and expand opportunity. So that was just a great comment.
Well, and I think the more that we engage individually with individuals with disabilities, even those naysayers, change their mind.
Mhm.
You know, uh, you know, uh, I have this a vision. If we can just get everybody together, on for multiple days or for multiple reasons, or even, what do they call that? One of those pick your own adventure kinds of things where,
Mhm.
you're trapped. Oh, escape room,
Oh.
in an escape room or something like that, even just
Mm.
where you have to work together and problem solve to be able to get out to something, to some end. I think that, we would see a greater change. I really, really do.
Yeah.
Yep. With the rise in technology in education, What opportunities and challenges do you foresee for students with disabilities, particularly regarding access to assistive technology and digital resources?
So some of the things that we definitely see at LTRI-C is, learning the technology early on so that it can be transitioned into adulthood. Again, I think because of those limited resources in K through 12, folks find it just easier to do for versus let's use some technology
Mhm.
and teach the technology so that you can do for yourself. And so a lot of students transitioning in from K through 12 have never used a computer to read questions to them or, to read a textbook to them because somebody always read it to them or interpreted it for them so that they could just hear what the interpretation of what of it was rather than having to read it for themselves. I do think that one of the things that's going to be a plus and a minus is the utilization of artificial intelligence.
Mm,
So GPT chat and some of these other things that we have, I think can be a very cool tool for individuals with disabilities who have a hard time getting their ideas out of their head. Uh, but can take something that somebody else has generated and transition it into their own verbiage, into their own words, into making it them own selves and being able to utilize that as a potential, report or something for academics or something for the job.
mm,
I mean, there are many professionals I can count on hands and toes that tell me, in the very early ages of using AI, which is just, it's not that old, that they have found it to be a great tool to help them, write a letter, an email, a
mm,
report, or this or that, and they can take that and revamp it to their own. So I think artificial intelligence is going to kind of show us some things. Now, the negative to that is that individuals don't change it into their own words and they try to pass it off
mm.
as their own.
Yeah.
And that's difficult for faculty, right? And it will be difficult for employers too. So um, I think that, getting there's greater access to technology these days, but I think that oftentimes folks have limited resources. So, there's things out there that folks can use. They may or may not know about them. And so knowing what exists is part of it, but also being able to get it is part of it as well. And they do have some of these like Tech Owl and some other technology lending programs out there for individuals with
Mhm.
disabilities, but they're limited as well. And, certainly there's hoops to jump through to make it happen. And, they get a little bit overwhelmed and challenging to do, which I think it helps to keep folks away from taking the steps to access those types of things.
Is
So,
there is there a website or like a clearinghouse that has all different types of assistive technology that parents can access anywhere on the web?
yes, a lot of different places. Can I come up with them off the top of my head? Typically, what I would do and what I have found to be most helpful is just Google assistive technology lists, and it populates lots of options.
Mhm.
Okay.
Uh, but like parent networks would be one of the places. I would look for names that sound like they're legitimate and not just, you know, uh, Charlie Brown's, assistive
Mhm.
technology list, but
Right.
something that looked like it, if it came from a school district or, like I said, a parent network or like a government place, .gov, those types of things I think could be uh, fairly trusted. Temple University, I'm sure, has one because, like I said, they have the Tech Owl
Yeah.
program. So I'm sure there's plenty out there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, and that was good. Yeah, you mentioned like yeah, like Temple and Tech Owl. There are like there's a lot of like state-based resources. I don't know if the Peel Center has some, but they do parent advocacy work. Some of these kind of other organizations usually have a lot of resources. Being an assistive technology being part of that too.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of things out there. I mean, as far as limited resources to purchase, the other thing is that it then pushes things back. So a personal example that I can give you is Um, like I said, I have a disability. I said I have a physical disability, a pretty significant physical disability that limits my mobility from my shoulders down. I use a power wheelchair. I can't feed myself. I can't dress myself, all of those different types of things. But I definitely always wanted to drive. Driving's like the epitome, right? You turn 16, you get behind the wheel, and you get to go and be independent and, go to McDonald's or hang out with friends or go to the football game or whatever the case might be. Again, a lot of things that I never got to do as a young person because who can afford the $100,000 that you need to be able to get a vehicle that's accessible and drivable by somebody like myself? I have a joystick. It's called the um, AVIT system, and it's pretty much called drive by wire. So if you think of a cockpit in a fighter aircraft, that's kind of like how my van drives.
Mm.
You use a
Wow.
joystick for everything. Steering, gas, brake, it's all on one joystick. But again, costly. You got to get the training, you got to be able to afford the equipment, you got to be able to afford the insurance on the vehicle once you got it. And OVR doesn't kick in until you are able to, first of all, say you want to work and are, close to being able to work before they would purchase something like that. So, there's just some of these hurdles that get in the way of having that access. And then the access limits the opportunities limits the dream.
Mm.
The dream then doesn't get created. Wow, that was a downer. Sorry.
No, that's
No, not
okay.
at all. No, no, it wasn't a downer. It was like, you know what? It's really how one factor then,
Mhm.
how it affects across the spectrum and even across the lifespan, So no, not a downer at all. It's just very deep thought, at least for me. I was in
Mhm.
very
Yeah.
deep thought. I'm like, wow, yes, you know. So, how can educators and administrators better collaborate in K 12 and higher education to better support students with disabilities?
So this was a fun one for me. I was like, woohoo, I want to answer this.
Mm.
Um, I would love to see some more opportunities for individuals with disabilities for inclusive dual enrollment programs at the college to act like a bridge. So, not college classes being taught at the high school, totally different. I mean, students coming to the college and taking advantage of classes that are offered at the college that are fully inclusive and provide the opportunity for them to start seeing, dreaming, learning, experiencing all of those things that we talked about, the determination, the problem solving, to get those juices flowing, get those creative mind synapses working to see what their possibilities can be. I mean, that is one of the things that I think really, aside from my go get 'em uh, personality, my bulldoggedness, as my husband likes to say, I get a bone and I don't want to let it go. Um, and my secret nickname being the Velvet Hammer, um, are all aspects of the fact that I had some of these experiences that I'm talking about that led me to where I am today. Because I was able to start getting those juices flowing early, because I was able to start dreaming early, because I was shown worth and what it was that I had to offer. All of that helped to move me forward into what I have today. So I think those inclusive dual enrollment programs at the college to act like a bridge would be a great step. And the other thing that I think would be fabulous is to start seeing some of the K through 12s partner with higher education
Mm.
facilities to provide the transition years, the 18, 19, 20, 21, now 22, um, opportunities for growth, journeying, same age peers, all of those different types of things. If we get enough colleges out there, community college and the like, with inclusive post secondary programs, it would be easy for high schools to partner then and say, hey, we have 5 students coming out at finishing up with their K through 12 requirements, but now they're whatever they call them, super seniors or whatever the Bango lingo is, um, that can then utilize the resources the college has to offer to start really working on those transition goals.
Mm.
So those would be the 2 things I could see could be really great.
Yeah.
All right. And
Are there
so, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Yulissa.
Sorry, yeah, quick question. So as far as dual enrollment goes, have there been any programs that you know of that specifically have started targeted students with disabilities in any state?
Well, I mean, we have dual enrollment students now at LTRC that have disabilities that receive seat support. So we're
Okay.
trying to do some of this by
Okay.
moving our way through. I mean, I don't know if I can say this, so you can edit this out. I don't know if well, just making sure. I don't know if it's because school districts lose money when they no longer have enrollment of persons with disabilities, because you get a certain extra stipend for the number of folks with disabilities that you have in your K through 12 system. So I don't know if that's part of the concern or what, but it is a really slow process to try to help encourage and make that headway into the system. And it's been parents who have had to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to have my son or daughter stay in K through 12 high school building because they're now 19, 20 and should be in a more college peer associated place environment. And you're going to help me get them into that and help me pay for that even, in some regards. So I think it does come down to money, but that's why I paused because I'm not sure if you want to be able to cut that one out or not. But
No,
unfortunately,
that makes a lot of sense. You'll let me know. You can think about it, and then you'll let me know. But that makes a lot of sense because recently I think the Pennsylvania and please don't take this with a grain of salt because I'm thinking at it at the top of my head. But I thought that recently there was a law that was passed that high schools wouldn't lose headcount money if students were attending dual enrollment full time at colleges. And that was done because of the same issue, because students were spending maybe their whole senior year at the college, and then high schools could no longer claim them as headcount and they were losing funding. So now they passed a law saying that that's no longer the case, that they wouldn't lose funding if, they would get to keep that funding. So I wonder if that's the same. So I agree. I think that, that could possibly be one of the concerns, definitely.
well, and if it is, maybe that's part of that legislation question that you can pop it back into.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something that we could change.
Yeah, for sure.
And Michelle, lastly, how can educational leaders across K-12 and higher education promote a culture of empathy, understanding, and acceptance within schools to create a more inclusive environment for students with disabilities?
And I think the Centennial School that Lehigh University has does this well. And we've been very blessed to have individuals graduating from the Centennial School or have had experience at the Centennial School coming into LTRC and receiving seat support. So we're thankful for that. But I would say one of the things that we need to grab as an institution, as a society, is that everyone brings their own talents and has something to offer. And I think sometimes our faculty forget this. Sometimes our institutions forget this. Sometimes we as individuals forget this. And I think the more that we can really own that and make that a truism in all that we do, the more we will start seeing that change impact in both K through 12 and higher ed. I think the other thing that really helps is being willing to pursue the gold. Being an educator is so tough sometimes. You feel like you're just climbing up Mount Everest every day. and you're not getting anywhere with
Yep.
anybody. Is anything sinking in? Please, somebody tell me. Um, and I think the educators, the folks that really work hard to pursue that gold, are the ones that get to see that gold, that get to the other end, even when it's challenging and hard to do. Again, that story about that individual who was very, shy, very had behaviors that were not college appropriate for real. Uh, to run their own meeting today was an amazing change. There's still a long way to go,
Hmm.
but we pursued the gold and we found the gold. And that students so much better for it. Society is so much better for it. Um, and the other things that I've already been saying, which is society needs everyone in order to be complete. We are incomplete when we start leaving people out. When we segregate, when we dismiss, when we hate, all of those things, we are leaving people out and society is diminished because of it. And the last thing that I'll say is perfection is an antiquated concept and diversity is what needs to be adopted.
Yeah.
So we should eradicate perfection word from our vocabulary, and we should look to how we can make as many things as possible diverse and celebrate the talents that everybody brings with them.
Yes, very well stated. Well stated.
Yes.
Michelle, did you have any other anything else on your mind here before we before we close out?
I think I more than shared my mind. You guys are probably like, "Oh my goodness, what did we ask this lady to do?"
Oh, this was great. This was wonderful. This is wonderful. And
Yes.
I think the vision that you have is really where we need to be moving
Hmm.
towards, you know, I really do. And I
I
think you brought up some really important points and some possible solutions and how we can address some issues. So this was wonderful. Thank you.
I have been very blessed, like I said, with the pathway that I have taken to be able to find the truths associated with the various steps that I have taken. And I, in no means, have all the truth or have all the answers. Um, but I have enough experience now to be able to say that individuals who are given the opportunity to demonstrate their skill and shine, are those that are going to allow us to, I'm trying to think how to say this. I'm not saying it as well as I would like to, but basically those are the individuals that are going to be our next generation to then hopefully open up even more and open up a little more and open up a little more and be able to really get us to where we want to go.
Yeah.
Yep, well stated. All right. Thank Michelle, again, thank you so much for your time. This has just been incredible. Just as such an eye-opening conversation.
Well, I appreciate your time too. Thank you so much. And I'd be curious at some point to hear some of your thoughts on these questions, but
Oh. Yep,
maybe that's another podcast.
yep. And interestingly enough, I think one of the last things you said, you're talking about, uh, instead of perfectionism, the idea of diversity. And I'm just as I hear that, I'm so encouraged, and at the same time, I'm also frustrated with so many efforts now against diversity and against diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is incredibly problematic. And just as a little foreshadowing here, you never know, we may be doing a show or we may be doing something uh, to inform the public a little bit more on that particular effort. So, folks, if you're out there and you're subscribed to the podcast, stay tuned. You never know, we might be talking about that one too. All right. So, with that, for Michelle, for your Litza, and your Litza, thank you once again for a wonderful show. We so appreciate all your work, all the work you're doing.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yes. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Michelle. And for everybody out there, for all of our viewers, listeners, and anyone else who's supporting us, thank you for continuing to support our show. And we will see you next time. Thank you.